Welcome in to the Standard. I'm joined by a very, very special guest to recap whatever the hell we just saw the Pittsburgh Steelers do on Thursday night. Ryan Parish, good friend of mine, writer at Behind the Steel Curtain. Ryan, anything you want to say about yourself? Introduce yourself. Tell the people what you're about.
Well, for starters, thanks for having me here. Writer, deputy editor over Behind the Steel Curtain, Steelers born and raised. Been riding with the Steelers back since the Cordell Stewart days. Really started locking in Ben Roethlisberger's rookie year. I think I was like 12. So, longtime Steelers fan. And on nights like this, that's harder to say maybe, but we'll get into it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I guess we're calling it the classic Tomlin trap game. 33-31 loss the Steelers took against the Cincinnati Bengals. They fall to 4-2 on the season. And I really don't even know where to start on this one. Do you have a place you want to start?
Let's start with this while we're talking about Tomlin traps. Yeah. I believe this brings his away Thursday record to 2-10, maybe 2-11. It's a little. I might be off by a game there, but he has 2 away Thursday night wins all time. And as much as I was like, it's gonna break the Steelers' way, everything on paper seems like this should be a favorable Steelers matchup. Here we are, saying same old Steelers.
And another stat for you. This brings Mike Tomlin's record against division opponents on the road on Thursday Night Football to a whopping 0-9. There you go. There's your stat. There's your stat of the night.
Never a win.
I don't even know how it's possible at this point. It's sickening. 33-31. I mean, we have to start with the defense, I guess, or lack thereof. I don't know if it was the fact. I said yesterday when Jack and I were doing our preview that the Bengals honestly looked somewhat competent against the Packers, and they have a really good defense. I think that corner room is a little bit lacking in Green Bay, and the Bengals never really got much going offensively, but they didn't completely lay down. And I knew coming into this one that they weren't going to lay down. Obviously, divisional game. Game at home, Thursday night, tough environment, need to win it. They're wearing the whiteout uniforms, the white Bengal uniforms. I think those are some of the most overrated uniforms, by the way. I don't think they're cool. And I know, Joey, you're a hater. You don't like the Bengals. You're right. I don't like the Bengals. But at the same time, I don't think the uniforms are that cool. What's unique about them? They're black and white. Anyways, I'm digressing more than I should. Joe Flacco.
No, Tigers are cool, man. I don't know what to tell you.
They're cool. They're in style, I guess. 31-47. Joe Flacco threw the ball. Close. Are they? I don't know.
I think they're endangered.
I'm not going to pretend.
White Tigers in the wild. I think they're endangered.
Somebody that's listening knows about Tigers. So somebody leave a comment about the Bengal Tigers, the White Tigers in particular. Are they extinct? Yes or no? The White Tiger tonight. That's what we'll call Joe Flacco, the White Tiger. 41 passing attempts, 3 touchdowns, 342 yards. He was surgical. It was Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin playing a lot of cover 3 and just torched us. Just absolutely torched the Steelers. Jamar Chase, 16 receptions. Now, I know, Ryan, you're a big film guy, big all-22 guy. How in the world are you even going to bring yourself to watch this? 16 receptions for Jamar Chase. It felt like, especially on that final drive, it was just wide open in the flat. Steelers just continuing to let Jamar Chase kill them with the yards after the catch.
Well, I'm going to find a way to bring myself to watch it because I think, like a lot of your listeners, in my core, I'm a football sicko. So I want to, and also I want to know if what I'm thinking when I'm watching the game is actually what happened. A lot of times you come away from a broadcast thinking one thing, and then you get under the hood a little bit and you realize, oh, it was kind of that, but actually we can look at this. You already mentioned the cover 3. I think that is an astute observation, and I think I spent a good part of the game yelling into the abyss, Terrell Austin, when are you going to realize that they're just running curl routes? They're just running Jamar Chase curl routes into the soft spot of the cover 3. For the love of God, make an adjustment. And then I think later we saw also that the linebackers and the miscommunication, they have it felt like a few times a game where pre-snap, you see Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson kind of yelling at each other, trying to figure out where to be. And it just seems like at least once a week, if not more, the opposing offense is able to do that. We saw that in the final drive for the Bengals. I think all of that really, like, they had a chance to finish it off, but that Jamar Chase crosser, man coverage or whatever it was blown. The linebackers were clearly at fault, and that's a big story of what the night was, I think, is the linebackers were not on point again tonight. They started off hot. The first two drives were pretty impressive from the defense, and then after that, it just kind of fell to the wayside.
I thought this was a really important night going into this game for the secondary because there were a lot of changes made to the secondary. This offseason, obviously, you ship off Minkah Fitzpatrick. You have Jalen Ramsey come in. You sign Darius Slay, and it kind of pushes Joey Porter Jr., who you had really high expectations for the previous season. He kind of fell short of those expectations. So you have him kind of playing this rotational role with Darius Slay now. It's kind of very weird going into this game, and I felt like this was the game. It may not make or break the Steelers season, although a lot of people think it might break the Steelers season. You may not be wrong in that. It may not make or break the entire season, this game in particular, but this was kind of my checkpoint for the corners. How good is Jalen Ramsey? How good is Darius Slay? Did these offseason moves pay off? Because it felt like the Steelers went into the offseason, they made those changes with guys like Jamar Chase, guys like T. Higgins in mind. It's something I brought up last night, Ryan. Do you know every time Mike Tomlin talks about T. Higgins, he calls him Mr. Higgins? Every single time he talks about him. I don't know what it is. He's more impressed with T. Higgins than he is with Jamar Chase. More power to him. It was Jamar Chase that killed him tonight. Maybe Jamar Chase took it personally, but Jalen Ramsey had a rough night tonight, at least by the broadcast view of things.
I mean, you're not wrong in that regard, and yet who was it who made that clutch catch there at the end and who was smart enough to lay down before getting the goal line to make sure that the Bengals were able to use up all the clock? T. Higgins. And how did he win? He out-physicaled Ramsey, got just enough behind him, and over the top. So, they have two superstar receivers. I don't think any of us are unfamiliar with that. I think we know that's what the Bengals are about, and it's tough. And I look at some of the additions they made. Yes, there was a lot of secondary turnover, but it just feels like to me that Darius Slay is the new Dante Jackson, where it's like, man, you're going to be once or twice a game. We're just going to see him looking like he just had the most catastrophic injury in the world, and he's going over to the blue tent. And then we're going to sub in Brandon Echols, and he's either going to be all right or he's going to get put in an assignment that moves somebody else out of their natural position. And I just feel like it's a Sisyphus pushing the rock always up the hill. It's just like it's the same stuff. The names change a little bit, but it's the same problems. And, tip of the hat to the Bengals. They had no business winning that game, and yet they also came tonight on a night where Joe Flacco's been on the team for all of 10 days. It's his second game in those 10 days. They were talking on the broadcast how that's an incredibly short time to prep, and with this new offense that I'm sure he's got some familiarity with, but the verbiage is probably different. And you know what? Credit to Joe Flacco. He hit it when it mattered. And I think a big part of the thing was that the secondary didn't hold up, but also after being on fire for the last 2 weeks, where was the pass rush tonight? We were getting them in spots, but it was just not consistent.
It wasn't. TJ Watt, he had that sack near the end of this game to give the Steelers a chance and eventually led to that big Pat Freiermuth touchdown, 68 yards, by the way. Insane. Pat Freiermuth led this team in receiving yards with 111 tonight, 2 touchdowns, which is unbelievable in its own right. It was Arthur Smith's dream of all dreams tonight. The Steelers were the first team in NFL history to have 3 tight ends with at least 3 catches, and each of those tight ends scored a touchdown. It doesn't get much better if you're Arthur Smith. You're not even worried about the loss if you're Arthur Smith. That's what really matters to you at the end of the day, right?
He almost had 4 if Connor Hayward could just reel in a pass.
You almost did. Connor Hayward, our glorious fullback, 4th string tight end, whatever he's.
What does he do here? What does he do here?
Great question. The whole tight end room situation is weird. I guess it's time. I've been doing this thing for the last couple of weeks. It's the Steelers tight end room power rankings. I'm going to update them. Last week, Pat Freiermuth was dead last. He fell behind Connor Hayward. Well, welcome back, Pat Freiermuth.
Wow.
You're gonna be number 1. I mean, you have to. 2 touchdowns, 111 yards. That's probably, I don't know, probably the best game we'll see from the Steelers tight end all season. Amazingly enough, because he's been so quiet the last couple of weeks. Pat Freiermuth 1, put Jonnu Smith at 2, had that first touchdown. really was just there for Aaron Rodgers when he held the ball for 8.6 seconds or whatever it was. He had all the time in the world. And it was at the point where I thought the Steelers, they had me for a second. They reeled me in. I thought they were looking good, up a touchdown early. Third, I guess we're going to give it to Darnell Washington because he caught the ball tonight. And Connor Hayward, welcome back to last place in the Steelers tight end room power rankings.
There you skipped one. So you're just putting Jono at 2, huh?
Yeah, Jono's at 2. Yeah, that's fine. Darnell
do I get to do my rankings then? Because I think I would differ a little bit.
Really? Would you? Okay, I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
Hot take. Number 1, I think you got to keep Mount Washington in that spot because he adds everything. We see him catching the ball. He's a plus multiplier when it comes to blocking. I think he's clearly the best blocking tight end we have. The Steelers' biggest problem is that while they have 4 tight ends, 3 of them can't block a lick. Yeah. The best they can do is kind of get in the way. And only Darnell is able to actually on a consistent basis. Not that he doesn't have his whiffs every now and then too, but more often than not, he's at least able to execute his assignment. There was something earlier in the game too where he was pulling, and then they pulled Spencer Anderson. They both went the way on a run to Jalen Warren, and it was back when things were good, and we were like, "That's perfection. That's exactly what you want to see." So to me, Darnell's still in that top spot. Coming in at number 2. Welcome out of Aaron Rodgers' doghouse, Pat Freiermuth. It's good to see you still have a pulse. I've been having this theory that there was a really bad miscommunication or 2 in the Jets game, and I just feel like he's been in Aaron Rodgers' doghouse ever since. I mean, look at the game Jalen Warren had, and remember in the second quarter how much Aaron Rodgers was ripping into him on that flea flicker play where he, I think, ran the wrong way. Aaron Rodgers is not a guy who will suffer a lack of attention to detail. He will not deal with it, and I think Freiermuth was in his doghouse, but he's alive. He's back. Put him in 2 for this week. Number 3, I'm going to give it to Jonnu Smith because he did get a touchdown, but I honestly think he's been a pretty big dud for us. They don't really use him as much as I think fans are thinking. He's caught a couple touchdowns, I think, but we're not really seeing him in the bubble game where he's good. That's kind of what he is as a short yardage yak guy. He's not really a downfield route runner, and he's definitely not much of a blocker. So I just been why did we invest in that? And then obviously in last place, we got to have Connor Hayward, who, as much as his older brother protests, I still don't know what he does here. There was a play where on the highlight they replayed it was a touchdown, right? And they're here's Connor Hayward pulling and making the block. He blocked in that he made the guy have to step around him, but he didn't lay a hand on his guy, and he almost never does. He never gets a hand on his assignment. And then when you throw the ball to him, it's maybe he's going to catch it 1 out of 4 times, So I don't know what he does here. He's forever in my doghouse. When Cam Hayward retires, he's not on the team, I don't think. But that's my take.
Nepotism has ruined my football team with Connor Hayward, and Joey Porter Jr. had a rough night again. Another point for the Bengals. They could do no wrong on offense tonight. No wrong. Chase Brown only had 11 carries, and he had over 100 yards. Chase Brown has been dreadful. He went into this game averaging sub 3 yards a carry, and he goes out against the Steelers defense, who was terrible against the run the first couple of weeks. Then these last couple of weeks, we saw the pass rush get, some production. We saw them really be able to stop the run. And, we're thinking the Bengals have the worst rushing offense in the entire league. That was certainly not the case tonight for the Bengals.
Apparently all they needed to do was switch to outside zone, because the Steelers were all on them whenever they tried to run up the middle, but they switched up to outside zone somewhere in that second quarter, and that's when they started gashing us. And it's if that's all it takes, I don't know, man. How can you not adjust to that in game? All they're doing is running to the outside now. We're supposed to have the bodies to handle that. How is this happening? I don't know. Just big holes to the outside. And it's frustrating for sure. But I would like to interject. I am a bit of a JPJ apologist. And I will say, I think he's I don't know. He gets flags, and that's what happens with him because he's a press man corner. And I think, in a given game like tonight, some of them were holds, yes, but I also think there were a few that were thrown that were some pretty ticky-tacky calls. I didn't think they were really letting them play too much until late in the game. And I think that's also maybe why, Higgins was able to get behind Ramsey so much, as they were at that point, like, conscious of, like, they're not letting us hand fight very much. So, you saw the play near the end of the game. It was down the sideline where JPJ kind of got up, turned around, and made a swat. He kind of changed up how he hand fought in that situation and was able to get a pass deflection in that situation. And I think it was just they get in their heads once they start getting the yellow flags. And I think, a couple games a year, because like JPJ last year, it was really only a handful of games where he got flagged, and almost all of his penalties came in a handful of games. So it's like you catch a bad night where the crew isn't going to let you get away with your typical hand fighting, and you get labeled as a bust. And I think he's up there among the cornerback twos. Like, I don't think you're going to find many cornerback twos I would rather have than Joey Porter Jr. And maybe I'm delusional, but that's where I am with it.
I don't think you're delusional at all. I think Joey Porter Jr., I think, interestingly enough, that one game he had last year, I do believe it was against the Bengals, where he had like 3 or 4 personal fouls and everybody was making fun of him. So maybe it's just against the Bengals he has this kind of weird thing happen.
Well, what did the Bengals have?
2 elite
superstar
receivers.
Wide receivers that the NFL loves to market. And maybe we get a little favoritism calls when it comes to the hand fighting, when we got 2 superstars that we want people scoring their fantasy points. I don't know.
A little conspiracy. I don't know. Roger Goodell, would you like to come on the Standard and answer? Would you like to know? The people are wondering. But
I'll settle for Clete Blakeman.
All right. We'll go to the Steelers offense here. Aaron Rodgers, pair of interceptions, but 4 touchdowns again, his second game this season with 4+ touchdowns. Ryan, I don't know. He's 41 years old. The Steelers are asking him to do, in my opinion, quite literally everything. I know Jaylen Warren had a hell of a game. I don't want to discredit Jaylen Warren at all. I should probably mention him first. 127 yards for him. He was phenomenal tonight. His best game of the season by far and away. He's back in a big way. I never understood why Kenneth Gainwell was so involved. No shade to Kenneth Gainwell. He's been fine. But early in the season, it felt like they weren't giving Jaylen Warren the rock enough. This guy's a difference maker, and he needs to get the ball more, especially in games like this. I mean, it was kind of tough in the second half because the Steelers were trying to dig themselves out of a hole for the most of it. But I don't want to discredit Jaylen Warren. I feel like I should mention him first. But Aaron Rodgers, what are your takeaways from his game generally today? Because I just feel like he's being asked to do so much, almost too much, I would argue, because when Aaron Rodgers signed here, this was my whole takeaway from the Week 1 Jets game. He didn't anticipate having to put up damn near 40 points on the road against the New York Jets with a $160 million defense. He didn't anticipate having to put up, again, damn near 40 points to beat the Bengals on the road with Joe Flacco. Maybe I shouldn't say the Bengals. He shouldn't have to put up 40 points to beat Joe Flacco with a $158 million defense. A pair of picks for him today. First one was pretty bad. Second one, I guess, do we blame that one more on DK? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I would say that, just to touch on the score a little bit, yeah, like if you told us coming into the night that the Steelers are scoring 31 points, you're probably thinking we're coming away with a win, right? But,
yeah.
Unfortunately, that wasn't the case tonight. I'm not trying to come off as a player apologist. I know after my JPJ rant that maybe that's what this will sound like. But honestly, I don't really put too much of those 2 picks on him. For one, he hits DK square in the chest on the one, and it's a catch until DK gets it wrestled out of his arms. Like, that's not on the quarterback. Like, I'm sorry. He threw it where it needed to go. DK's got to be stronger at the ball with that. And that's kind of, I wrote a whole film breakdown on what we were getting when we got DK. And my biggest criticism is, as much as he's a difference maker with his speed after the catch, his ability to get vertical, if you got one little area, other than maybe the occasional concentration drop, where he's a bit disappointing as your wide receiver 1, it's that for a guy his size, he is not a contested catch guy. That's just not, that's just not his game. He's not a contested catch guy. And we saw it raise its head there at a really bad time.
That's what I never understood about. Second one, I just never understood whenever we got DK, and we still had George Pickens at the time. People were like, "Oh, we have to trade one. They're the same kind of receiver." I always kind of disagreed with that notion. I think George Pickens is your more prototypical, obviously go up and get it, deep ball contested catch guy, one of the best in the league. And I still think the Steelers made a big mistake getting rid of him. But DK, I have some thoughts about giving him $150 million. Obviously, they had to make some kind of move at wide receiver, but to turn around and give yourself the same kind of position you were in last year where, yeah, you have one good receiver and he's good at some very specific things. You're lacking in a lot of areas. And they're asking DK to do a lot, maybe even in some situations we saw tonight where he's not the best in.
And I mean, largely DK has been pretty good, right? I mean, coming into tonight, he had the touchdown streak. He is a good player. I don't think he's maybe necessarily in that upper tier. He's not necessarily in that elite tier, but he is in the tier of very, very good. And so I don't want to get too harsh on him, but that was one where you got a hand on him. And on that second interception, I got to get to the all 22 just to confirm this, but I'm pretty sure they were in like a full protect. And so Aaron Rodgers didn't really have a lot of options. So maybe you ask him to throw it away there. So like that one's probably the one on him if you're going to hang one on him. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know, man. Sometimes Arthur Smith, it's like you can be cooking and then he gets a little lost in his own sauce. I mean, we were running the ball so well in that first part. And then that second quarter, we got cute with the flea flicker that ended up not being run appropriately from Aaron Rodgers' reaction. Seems like he was hoping that Warren was going to leak out there in the opposite direction because he booted right and there was nobody out that way. Everybody was on the left side of the field. And then we just didn't run the ball until we were behind again. And it was like, you know, what do you do? Like you were saying, there's when the opposing team knows that they only have one wide receiver that they have to worry about, I mean, you handcuff yourself a little bit. And so obviously I know a lot of Steelers fans are tired of hearing about well, what if they get a wide receiver 2 in the trade conversation? But it's like, you know, there's a reason that keeps coming up. It's because you really paint yourself into a corner with the imbalanced offense. And while I get why George Pickens had to go, I really do. And he's a guy that I wanted them to draft in the first round over Kenny Pickens and was delighted when they still got him in the second. You know, I get it. You know, he's not necessarily a reliable character week in and week out. And so I get why if you've figured let's sell high while we can. So I get that. But man, and I will say your boy Roman Wilson, he made a couple sightings and he would have had a very clutch first down catch if not for Broderick Jones once again getting penalized at the worst possible time.
Listen, I was going to bring up Roman Wilson. I'm glad you brought him up for me. The Jeremy Fowler tweet before the game had me fired up. The Steelers are looking to get Roman Wilson involved tonight. They've been bringing him up with the injury. Calvin Austin, yes, this is the time. Roman Wilson, boys, stand up, stand by. We're ready. 2 catches for 17 yards.
Fire the cannon, boys.
Should have been 3 for 35. We would have been hyped up with that one. I'm just convinced at this point it might never happen. And is it his fault? Maybe. Probably some of it's his fault. But at the same time,
is it his fault, or do the Steelers
I don't know.
just really not want to have 2 wide receivers?
But that could be it. That honestly could be it at this point. But at the same time, I struggle with the fact that, like, I don't want to be like, well, the coaches see him every day in practice. They know if he's good or not. Because I think there might be a tad bit of truth to that. But, like, how do you know? You haven't played him at all in any game scenarios. He's got, now 4 catches in his career? How can you draw literally any type of conclusion from that? I don't know what you do. More 2 wide sets. Does that solve really anything? Do we want to make Arthur Smith go out of his comfort zone?
Well, you know, and it's just like it's hard to know exactly. It's kind of like when you're getting diagnosed by a doctor and they're like, is this the root or is this systemic from other problems that are happening? And like it all goes back, I think, to the offensive line. I mean, it's simplistic to say, but like the offensive line, there's a reason why they're needing to trot out the 2 tight end, 6 O-line sets as much as they are. There's a reason why they're having to do all these funky blocking schemes, and there's a reason why Aaron Rodgers is having to throw the ball in 2.5 seconds. Now, I was in a moment of thinking the Steelers were going to have an easy night while they were up 10-0, commenting like, wow, I've never seen Aaron Rodgers have this much time with the Steelers to dance around. The Bengals D-line must be really, really cooked, especially without Trey Hendrickson. But it kind of all comes back to that. It's like, well, you can't go deep if you don't have the time to throw deep. You can't like scheme up certain run concepts if you can't have guys finding their assignment. And there's just, I feel like the Steelers' interior line is really kind of gelled as the season has progressed. I think that's progressed, but I still think like there was a play early in the game where it was like they tossed out to Jalen Warren and it looked like he was going to have a huge lane, but then Broderick Jones runs past the outside most defender, runs literally past him, and that guy makes the tackle on what should have been an even huger game. And it's like there's just these little details that the offensive tackles right now are not living up to their pedigree, and it's really just sinking the whole operation.
Yeah. And Aaron Rodgers had a lot of time, especially really early in the game, like you said. And that last play in the game, Aaron Rodgers' Hail Mary attempt traveled 69.8 yards in the air per next gen stats. That was the farthest an NFL QB has thrown a pass since at least 2017. It didn't matter.
I
At
mean,
that
honestly, I
point.
didn't think he had it in him, to be honest.
I didn't either. I was surprised when it got there, to be completely honest with you. I thought I
I'm
got
surprised we even
chills.
got a hand on it.
It was like the he turned 32 yesterday. Does he have a vintage moment? It was he turned 41 yesterday. Does he have a vintage moment left in him? It was that. We almost had that. We were so close, right? So close, yet so far. We'll switch gears a little bit here. The Steelers are 4-2, and my kind of when we previewed this game, my thinking was I think this is a really important game for the outlook of the season. It seems kind of insignificant in the fact that like, oh, the Bengals aren't very good, no Joe Burrow, blah blah blah. Now they're 4-2, and let's take a look at the Steelers' next 3 games. They play the Green Bay Packers at home. Packers are favored. They play the Indianapolis Colts on the road in Indy, the current 1 seed in the AFC. They're red hot. And then they play the AFC West. I think they're not leading right now, or maybe they are. I don't think they are. I think the Broncos may still be leading. Regardless, the Los Angeles Chargers on the road in SoFi Stadium, who are a very good football team. Let's leave them at that. Guys, I'm not going to say that the Steelers are going to go out there and lay 3 eggs and lose all 3 of those, but it's not like out of the question here. Those are really good football teams here. I think best case scenario, you're looking at a 2-1 here, and then you're 6-3 at that point. Guys, I know Baltimore's 1-5. I know that their defenses look dreadful. They're going to get healthier after the bye, and their schedule opens up for them. I don't know. To me, the division's still wide open. Nothing is out of the question. After the way I saw this team play tonight, there's no reason for me to say that it is any different than any other year. And that's been my concern this entire time. I haven't told Ryan this, I don't think. I got sucked in really hard last year when they were 7-2. I was drinking the Kool-Aid. I came on here and I was like, guys, this is the best Steelers team we've seen since 2017. And obviously we all know how that ended with the Russell Wilson fumble on the goal line in Baltimore. It all went downhill from there. This is kind of that same scenario. I'm just glad it happened earlier in the year, so I don't have to get my hopes up, because I was this close to getting my hopes up. This team, make no mistake, might win the division. Maybe. I'd say probably not at this point. They'll probably make the playoffs still. They're not going to win a game. I have no confidence in them to win a playoff game or to believe that this is anything different than what we've seen. Am I crazy for that or no?
I mean, I hate to be, part of the downer party, but, I am not only am I a Steelers fan, but I am a Mariners fan, so I am hardened to my team's failures. And I sit here with you. Like I said before the season, like I think this is a team based on the schedule that was laid in front of them that could very easily get 10 or 11 wins if things break the right way. And I honestly still believe that. I still think they could get to 10 or 11 the schedule, because things are crazy with division play. I feel like in the worst years for the Steelers, they're still probably going to go 3-3 in division, even when they're at their lowest. And they're not at their lowest right now. I don't think this is the worst team I've seen. I think there's in a lot of ways things that you could point to say are better than even last year, when again, being from Seattle and getting to see Russell Wilson, I was having to hold that whole early run when when they were cooking with them. I was like, you
Yeah.
guys, I've seen this before. I've seen this. I know how he plays. An old dog does not change. An old short dog does not change his stripes. And unfortunately, uh, you know, it is what it was. And I think the parts have changed. The tune might be a little different, but when we get to the end result, I think it's going to be the same. I'm not as fatalistic to say that I don't think it's possible for them to win a playoff game, especially if they're playing in the wild card round, because kooky stuff happens all the time. You never know when there's going to be like a freak injury to another quarterback that makes them start a backup, in those rounds. So like, I'm not going to put it out there that they can't win a playoff game, but I don't think this is a team that you should be expecting to show up in the AFC title game. I don't think this is a team that you feel good about on the road in the playoffs. And I don't think this is a team that you feel good about if they've got a really good quarterback or if they've got a strong running game. Like, it just feels like, the Steelers are a very streaky team, and some weeks they'll get some of their act together in one phase of the game, but then they'll slip somewhere else. And we're also riding a bunch of really, advanced age players, we'll say, to put it a little kindly, who
That's a good way
are
to put it.
healthy now, but maybe won't be so healthy come December. I mean, like we said, Darius Slay is seemingly about to have a career-ending injury almost every week, it looks like. Jaylen Warren, you were talking about him earlier. I think he was banged up to start the season as well. We weren't seeing him. And I think he's a guy who's never had more than, I need to double check this, but I don't think he's had more than like 160 carries in a season.
I think you're right about that, yeah.
So you question if you rely so much on him, especially not just in the running game, but in the passing game as well. He's like our number 2 de facto leading receiver. So it's like, can his body maintain that many hits over the course of a season, especially since you've seemingly got you feel about Roman Wilson the way I feel about Caleb Johnson. And I feel like my boy has been put in bad positions, and when he has been given opportunities in his natural position, decent, especially when he's getting the great blocking. But, he's in the doghouse and clearly behind Kenneth Gainwell in that number 2 spot. So, I have questions there. I have questions about the zone line. I have lots of questions about pretty much every phase of the game for the Steelers. I think they're a team that can hang with all the bad teams, and I think they're a team that can surprise some of the good teams. I just don't think they're a team that's going to get past those elite teams.
Yeah, I didn't even you just like Caleb Johnson. Yeah, he didn't get a carry tonight. What is up with that?
I don't believe so. Well, for starters, when you go into the half trailing, that's not a recipe to get the guy in the doghouse that you're giving only 4 carries a game anyway touches, because now you're playing catch up, and you're not going to give catch up to a guy that the coaching staff clearly doesn't trust.
I'm a big proponent of let the kids play. I want to let the guy play. I've been on this podcast every single week. I yell at Mike Vrabel for trotting Ramondre Stevenson out there every single week and not running.
You and me both.
Not to the outside of Travion Henderson. We're going to try to run Travion Henderson right up the middle, exactly like we use Ramondre Stevenson. What are you doing? What are you doing? As critical as I've been of Caleb Johnson for the way he wasn't super impressive at training camp. He wasn't breaking any records preseason, but I do think he deserves more carries at this point. I mean, Jaylen Warren was awesome tonight.
While you're besmirching my boy, I will say that in the preseason, he was among the leaders in missed tackles forced. So I know he doesn't look super shifty or super powerful when you're just watching it, but he's got, I keep saying this, when you don't hit him behind the line of scrimmage, like you don't want for most running backs, he gained positive yardage. When your sieve of an offensive line gets him hit behind the line of scrimmage, shocker, didn't do so well in those situations. Same could be said of great running backs like Derrick Henry. He's basically great value Derrick Henry. They run exactly the same. Outside zone guys who are big bodied, but they're not necessarily your traditional power runners. Derrick Henry, you hit him behind the line, he folds. He's not really a good short yardage back, Derrick Henry. Just saying.
One of my gripes with the Caleb Johnson pick when it happened, and tell me if I'm crazy here, I think the Steelers like their pass catching backs. Najee Harris, his rookie year, had so many catches. I don't know the exact number. He didn't his, other years, but his rookie year, he was a big pass catcher. Jalen Warren, he was a big pass catching guy at one point. Le'Veon Bell was a great pass catching guy back in the day. Caleb Johnson in college had very little pass catching production. That was his one knock on his production profile. It was not very good. I think, does that play into it maybe? But like, I feel like the Steelers should have known what they were getting themselves into with a guy like Caleb Johnson who didn't have that receiving upside in college.
I think that's a nuanced take because on the one hand, I can't refute they didn't use him a lot. And so I do think he's inexperienced, and I do think that's an area of game that you should have expected some growing pains. Like, you knew that he wasn't consistently doing it. I've seen him catch the ball. However, you have a short patience quarterback in Aaron Rodgers who's a perfectionist. So you screw up once around him, and it's very easy for him to just completely throw all trust out the window. And second off, you bring up Le'Veon Bell, and I would like to point out, go back and look at Le'Veon Bell's college statistics. He didn't catch the ball either, and it wasn't because we ultimately found out that he couldn't. They just didn't ask him to because they were so good at running the rock with him. He did all of his damage there, and it's the same with Caleb Johnson. They put so much burden on him running the ball simply because Iowa. When's the last time they had a quarterback who you remember who was any good? They're not a passing juggernaut, and so it just wasn't a part of his game. And we've seen him actually make a few receptions. We've seen him drop plenty. I get it, but it's kind of circles back to your other point. Let the kids play. You know how you get better at something? By doing it. And so sitting on the bench, I don't know that that's really going to get you better. And I get why, if you're Aaron Rodgers and you're thinking this is your last chance at anything, you're not going to have patience for the young kid who is going through those growing pains. But I would just caution folks, don't write him off yet. I'm not even ready to write off Roman Wilson yet, just like you were saying. So
I'm not ready.
Let the kids play, but it's probably not this year.
I'm telling you, I'm not crazy. The days I was at camp, Roman Wilson was like the star. He was so good. He was electric. Aaron Rodgers was always looking his way. I just want to see him on the field more. That's all I want. You can't sit here and tell me that Scotty Miller is more valuable and helping this team in the receiving game more. I can't hear that. I'm sorry. I won't listen to you if you try to say that to me. I can't stomach that. But this Bengals team, 33 points tonight against the highest paid defense in the league. Certainly not the best. Are we believing in them moving forward? Do they have a little juice to them all of a sudden? I don't think they're going to win the division or anything, but they're going to be one of those teams that they're probably going to beat some teams they shouldn't. They're going to mess up their draft pick, that's for certain. And I know they keep saying Joe Burrow's going to come back mid-December. I always thought, just shut the guy down at that point. It's going to be long over by that. But I don't know. If Joe Flacco's out there throwing for 350,
that's why they make the trade, right?
Joe Flacco's streaky, though. Much like our great men in black and gold. He's very streaky. He'll have a stinker very soon.
I believe it. I mean, he wasn't that impressive in his debut, which you could chalk that up to the short week. But I think just think back to last year. Was it last year or was it 2 years? It's starting to run together for me. But there was a moment there, I think when he was with the Browns the first time, I don't even remember at this point, but there was a period where we were all sitting around going, I think it was 2023, where we were all going, Joe Flacco, he still got some juice. He still got it. And there was a month where it was like, holy shit, is Joe Flacco really going to have this second chapter in his career? Is he going to pull a Kurt Warner and just rise from the ashes, a Carson Palmer, suddenly resurrect himself to another playoff run? And eventually the bottom fell out. So I'm not a huge believer, but at the same time, they got a couple Maseratis on the outside. And so that certainly makes his job easier if his offensive line can do anything. And, against a Steelers pass rush that was pretty hot coming into this game, they managed to hold up. So I wouldn't count them out. And like you were saying earlier about the Ravens, I'll believe the Ravens are dead when I see them buried in the ground. Until that happens, they're coming out the bye. Lamar's going to get healthy. Their defense was dog awful last year until the second half of the season, and then they were one of the best defenses in the league during the November and December. So I just think I wasn't falling for the let's write off the division rivals line again. This isn't our first rodeo. We've seen this before. I do think the Steelers can right the ship, and I do think with that next 3-game slate they have that they can manage 2 out of 3 games if they, don't quit on themselves. But, I just think we got some advanced age players and some volatile personalities and a coach whose message may be wearing thinner and thinner.
It is. It is. I mean, this is ridiculous what we saw tonight. This same thing happens every single year. It happens every single year. I attended the classic Tomlin trap game, Steelers-Patriots, where Bailey Zappi threw 3 touchdowns. When the infamous Mitch Trubisky 4th and 2 game. Yeah. Mitch Trubisky was thrown to Deontay Johnson that game. Remember Deontay Johnson? Yeah. Good Lord, man.
I remember when people thought that Mitch Trubisky was going to be good, and I didn't understand that, and I never will.
Listen, I don't think you know this about me. Mitch is a fan of the program. I love Mitch. I love Mitch as a person. As a player, I agree. Terrible. Not a good quarterback. Fine. Great guy, though. I will never say a bad word about Mitch Trubisky as a person. But I'll ask
you. Mitch Trubisky, and I just think of there's something that he loves that he vocalized on Twitter that maybe we won't bring up
I don't know.
word here, but
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. But
I think you do. But we can move on.
I'll ask you one final question here. If you had to take a guess right now, October 17th, it's 1:35 a.m. for me. You're on the West Coast. Do the Steelers win the AFC North this season?
Man, you really going to ask me that? Oh, boy. No. I don't think so, man. I think they finish second. They get the 5th seed, maybe the 6th seed. And, we do the whole show all over again.
They are going to choke this division to the Baltimore Ravens. They absolutely are. I don't know if they still are. As of last night, the Ravens were plus money to win this division. If you have a mortgage, let me tell you what, you want to pay off that mortgage? Put every dollar you have on the Baltimore Ravens to win the AFC North. It is going to happen. I don't care that they're 1-5. I don't care that their defense is on pace to give up 400 points. Don't care. The analytics and the numbers cannot take into consideration the Mike Tomlin that the Steelers have about them. They will lose games like this. They will find ways to give up this lead that they have early in the season. They still got to play Baltimore twice. And let me tell you what, Baltimore is going to be a whole hell of a lot better and healthier than they are when the Steelers see them. The Baltimore Ravens are still going to win this division. They're going to.
I think you're right. And, the thing that it just makes me think of is a lot of people have really started to get excited every summer when they do the schedule announcement. And to me, it's just become an annual exercise in all right, do we find out if the Steelers are going to start in a hole and work back with the easy back half? Or are they going to start off hot with the easy schedule early and then crush down the end? And it's you mix in a couple of games you think they should win that they won't, a couple games you think that they should lose that they will win, and voila, Steelers season, somewhere roughly around 9 to 11 wins, and we can call it a day.
I think the quote that best sums up this day, I mentioned it on my Instagram Live. You know the BR quote card where it's we had the better team on paper. Unfortunately, the game was played on grass. No night has ever better echoed that message than what we saw tonight from our Pittsburgh Steelers. Vibes are down. Vibes are very, very down. And guys, I wish I could sit here and tell you that it's going to get better. I don't know if it is. I can't guarantee that. I just can't with the teams they're playing coming up.
If I can make one more big picture point before we get out of here tonight.
Of course.
Because it consistently comes up and it will be talked about, I'm sure, ad nauseum tomorrow. And it will be especially talked about come January. But they keep saying, what has to happen for the Steelers ownership to decide it's time for a change? And what I can tell you is that the Rooneys are a team that we see it very often. They don't move off of guys. And in some ways, it's a very honorable, old school way of doing things. In some ways, it's a maddening exercise in continually running your head into a brick wall and expecting a different result. What I can tell you is when they sign that extension with Tomlin, they are going to give him a chance to draft a rookie this year. And I think there's 5 or so draftable quarterbacks that may not be your cup of tea, but I think there's going to be roughly 5 guys who could be drafted in the first round or the early second round. And if you're a doomer or if you're an optimist, this is what it will hinge on. Mike Tomlin is going to get to draft one more rookie quarterback, and he will then have 2 years on his contract to make that work. If we're here in 2 years and that rookie quarterback has failed, maybe
So you're
they
saying
move on.
there's a
But until
chance.
then, you just got to buckle in.
That's
But
a good
until
big
then,
picture
you
thing.
just got to buckle in and know that's what's going to be.
I absolutely want to have you on when it gets close to the draft season, the best season of the year. This has been a lot of fun. Generally,
Agreed.
I am absolutely terrified at the thought of Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan having the ability to select the next rookie quarterback for this team. It keeps me up at night. It truly does.
I think Omar can stay, because what we can say about this is it wasn't Omar who picked the last quarterback. It was a
not
lame
Omar.
duck
Yes.
GM. It was a lame duck GM who really wanted his legacy to be that he won all those Super Bowls and then left them with the next guy on his way out the door, and he was going to take whoever. And the fact that it was a Pitt guy was like the cherry on top. So I think Omar, for his part, has drafted well. I don't think the coaching staff has done a good job developing those guys. So I've got more leash for Omar, and I'll just say that we got to get out of here. We could go on this forever, but Omar, yay. Tomlin, I'm losing it, man.
I agree with you. But yeah, we could continue that conversation going for probably another hour and a half. So stay tuned for that as the draft gets closer. I mean, if things continue to go downhill for the Steelers, we might be talking about the draft sooner. No, I'm just kidding, guys. Everything will be fine, right? Vibes are looking up, right, guys? That's what I'm telling myself anyways.
Totally. What's the worst can happen?
Yeah. Guys, thank you all for listening. Ryan, thank you for coming on. Seriously, great analysis. Love to have you on again. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Everyone, for listening. We'll see you very soon to break down everything in the world of our Pittsburgh Steelers right here on The Standard.
Go Steelers.